What's the Daily Echo's relationship like with the local community?
Well, if we didn't have a good relationship with them, we wouldn't survive. And we've survived for 126 years this August. So we've definitely have a good relationship with the local community. Now, it depends on who you ask. I'm sure if you go out and ask of some head teachers that we perhaps written that the fact that their school didn't do so well in exam results, or that we go out and ask some politicians, perhaps all politicians in the city, they'll say, well, they never support me enough, or they're always saying my opponents are doing well, and so on and so forth. You'll always find some people that grumble and gripe, but that's the way of life. We are there to reflect the community, and that's what the community's like. It's not all doom and gloom, it's not all bad news. And if all we wrote about was doom, gloom, bad news, death and horror and mayhem, we'd lose readers hand over fist. We actually tell people what this community is all about. So I think the majority of people actually like us. They certainly have a view about us. If we do something they don't like, they tell us about it. And I think that shows how well we are liked and appreciated. That's not me, that's the paper. Because if there's something that a reader or a group of readers don't like, they quickly come to us and point it out. If they were indifferent to us, they wouldn't bother. You know, sort of like, so what does it matter if the Echo... In fact, we do get some politicians who'll say, oh, you know, who bothers with the Echo these days? To which my answer is always, well, why are you bothered then?
Well, a big part of the local community is Southampton Football Club.
Mm-hmm.
Since Nicola Cortese has left, has the relationship been better with the club and the Daily Echo?
Yeah, a lot better. It's been a lot better. I mean, you know, it's been no secret of the fact that we had a run-in with him. That wasn't on our part, that was his part. He took against the paper for whatever reason, and we just didn't let that really affect us, to tell you the truth. There is a school of thought that says that you shouldn't be too close to the club anyway. In the same way as we shouldn't be too close to any political party. We shouldn't be too close to the business community, because it's very difficult then to actually step back and actually write in a neutral way, to actually write and say, look, here's an objective approach to what this is. And you can get too close to a football team. Look, the Daily Echo supports Saints, of course we do, but we see ourselves as a critical friend. We see ourselves as a fan. And fans, when they get together, well, they're going to say, hang on a second, he's playing him when he should be playing him. We need to buy this player and that player. I don't know why they're spending money on this. Why should they should be spending money on that kind of thing? And that's what we do. So yes, we have a more friendly relationship. We've always had a friendly relationship with the club. It was just with one man who basically just happened to be the chairman and the chief executive. But since he's gone, yes, our relationship on that level has improved, but not to the point that it would ever stop us from actually writing something that perhaps the club may not like at some point.
How has the internet affected local newspapers?
Oh, well, I mean, it's a well-tried path now, a well-trodden path of this discussion about how it is. No one is going to deny, and I certainly won't, that it has affected the sales of newspapers. Our newspaper sales are lower than they used to be, and they continue basically to fall away. Not at an amazing speed, but they do begin to continue to fall away as readers migrate onto digital offerings. And that can be our website, or it can be apps, and it can be all kinds of new forms of communication that are basically there. At the end of the day, we don't mind that. We don't mind that because it's our audience. And our audience now, combined on our website and reading the newspaper, is vast, far vaster than it's ever been for the newspaper. In its history, it's absolutely vast. And this isn't just readers that have left us in the printed form and migrated online, and over 50% of those now pick us up on portable devices, that's tablets and phones and the like, and things like that. This is massive numbers of new readers that are coming to us that didn't used to read the Daily Echo before. They may have known the Daily Echo existed, but they're now being attracted to it by the ease at which they can get the information that's there. So this tells us, effectively, two things. Well, it shouts two things to me. One, they actually like what we do, because if we're attracting these people who are finding us, they actually like what we're doing because they keep on coming back to us. So what we've always known is that, look, we're the eyes and ears of the community. They come to us for that. And the interesting thing is, of course, that we can track the stories that most attract them. So and it's quite interesting, so sort of some stories that you'd think instantly would attract them might be shock and horror, not quite as much as some of the quirky stories and some of the very human stories. There's a great thing for humanity that we tend to see that if someone is having a bit of a rough time, then there's a lot of interest and a lot of comment from people saying, kind of like, come on, we should help support these people. And the other thing it tells us is we've got a large new audience out there, and so we've got to build on that, and we've got to learn how to capture those and keep that new audience that's there. So all of us in regional newspapers have spent the last several decades refining and defining what our readership is for our printed paper. And then suddenly we've got this massive big new audience, and we're having to find out what they are as well.
What impact do tablets now have on the print journalism industry as a whole?
What tablets are enabling us to do is to present the news again back in a form which is tried and tested over a couple of 100 years that people like to digest their news in. It's that simple. It's like, really, in another world, allied to ours, it's like the television news. The television news actually hasn't changed that much in all the years since it's been broadcast. It's someone sitting behind a desk saying, I'm going to tell you what the news is. They do all kinds of fancy things, and they've tried different things, and you can remember sometimes they're standing, and sometimes they've sat at chairs, and sometimes they're... At the end of the day, though, what do they go back to? The most comfortable way is someone sat on a sofa or sat at a desk, a couple of people telling you, looking at the camera and saying, this is what the news is, and here's a bit of film about it. And so, to go back to your question, what's happening in the evolution of tablets and other forms that are coming along is that newspapers, after going through a rocky period with digital, are actually now coming back into a form. News is being presented in a form that we understand very well, with headlines and pictures and drawing you into the story, and so do our readers. What the second point about it is that people like myself, I think, have come to the conclusion that whereas our younger readers, generations coming up, will probably not go to the paper. They'll probably go to magazines because there's something about magazines they like, but they'll go to tablets or they'll go to a digital form for news. But our older readers, that older generation, they will stay with the printed paper because no, because what we're finding as tablets become easier to use and more like books and newspapers and periodicals, they're migrating onto those as well. And my father's 83, and he's not long had an iPad. He never had a computer at all, and now he loves his iPad. And he reads his news and his newspaper on that. He doesn't have a newspaper anymore. Now, if at 83 he's decided to do that, I think I need to reassess my thinking about that. So I think as this progresses, it's not a threat to newspapers, because people that say, oh, well, the internet's going to kill you. Where do you go to get your news from on the internet? Yes, you'll probably go to the BBC, but then you'll go to your newspaper website. There you go. It's not going to kill us. We're masters of it as well.
So do you think that newspapers or print journalism as a whole will still exist in the next 20 to 25 years?
If I knew the answer to that, then obviously I would be making skrillions actually advising Rupert Murdoch. No one knows the answer to that. The strangest of things can happen, because whereas newspaper, all the talk in Britain and America and places like that is about, newspapers are dying and etc., etc. But there are other parts of the world, in South America and the Far East and Eastern Europe, where actually consumption of newspapers is growing, is just continuing to grow. And of course, the big success story in London is the Evening Standard.
Yeah.
The Evening Standard there, where they've gone from 250,000 bought copies to 750,000 free copies given away on the streets every night. It's an amazing thing, and it's a really good newspaper, and it's making money, and it's gone through its teething troubles, and it had to have a very rich backer to actually get it to that. But it's there. Now, is that going to happen elsewhere? I don't know, but I wouldn't turn around and say newspapers, because if you think about it, if we hadn't invented the newspaper, and we'd invented the electronic version beforehand, we'd now invent the newspaper. Okay. Because the newspaper is brilliant in the sense that it's convenient. You can scrunch it up and shove it in your bag. It costs you very little. in the great scheme of things, it may not have cost you anything at all. It may have been a free one you've picked up. It makes you laugh, it makes you cry, you can do the crossword, you can rip out the recipe, and then you can pop it in a recycling bin or pass it on to someone else. And you've not got to care about it, that it's a very expensive piece of electronic equipment that needs charging or downloading things or things like that. So for a certain sector, I think, of the society, and certainly me, I travel on the train quite often. I like to have a newspaper. I like to have a newspaper to be there. I don't want to be looking at a screen all the time. And anyway, I lose the Wi-Fi link and things like this. And as for taking my laptop or even my iPad into the bath, forget it.